What's happening? Welcome to Slapsville and into the 35th episode of the Slapstream. I'm Djordje Stijepovic, your friendly neighborhood bullfiddle cat, and today's guest is BEAU SAMPLE. I had some issues with the sound, so I would really like if some of you guys can tell me if you can hear me fine. Welcome, John. Welcome, John. Welcome, Ryan. Big shout out to Ryan for helping me out with the graphics. You're going to be able to see them. He's been doing the graphics for the last few episodes. And shout out to Nikki Lugosi from Argentina for helping out with videos as well and the promo stuff. People are joining. And before I introduce my guest, I would like to ask you to hit that subscribe button, to like the video and comment. The live chat going to be available on the side. If you feel like supporting the channel, please check out the Patreon and check out Venmo and PayPal links in the description of the video below. And super stickers and super chats are also available under the live chat. YouTube gave me that option recently. All right, without further ado, let me introduce BEAU SAMPLE. Hey, what's happening?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Can you hear me now fine?
I can hear you, yes.
Oh, excellent. I switched to the real microphone, so now I have that. I have that option. Ryan, please let us know if you can hear both of us fine or if we should adjust the volume. Ryan is here.
Hi, Ryan.
Your old Austin bass player friend. How are you doing? How have you been holding up during the pandemic and the whole end of the world thing?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, we have a new baby. That's the big exciting thing in our household.
Congratulations.
So that's kind of like one positive thing and a bunch of not so positive things. So, but yeah, staying busy and I don't know. I can't complain, I guess.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. You know, Slapstream is keeping me sane. You know, my only contact with music these days, pretty much, except occasional, studio sessions. But that's pretty much it. It's strange times.
Definitely made me realize how important music is to me. I'm sure it's done a lot to a lot of people. You know.
I
would
say it's one of the most essential things, because it's now when it's kind of gone, people are going crazy.
Especially musicians.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hopefully it's not going to be like that for too long.
Yeah.
Have you been doing any live streams, any shows during the last?
No, I really haven't done anything. I've done a few little recording sessions. Well, I say little, few regular sized recording sessions. And I haven't done much in the way of music. I've been doing carpentry and stuff like that, construction, keeping myself busy, which is another hobby of mine, and or is a hobby. Music is not really a hobby, I guess. But haven't done much on the computer really. So this is kind of exciting.
Yeah. Well, we did that Austin thing.
Thing. That was the one thing, the forum, the bass forum thing.
Yeah.
Which was a blast.
It was a blast. It was very amazing. So whoever missed that one, you can check that out on Austin Bass Hang YouTube channel, I believe. And there's a few over there, and I think this was the first one that we did back in June, I think.
Yeah. You think there'll be more?
I don't know. I mean, I know that they did a few others, but like with the different themes. They did like Nashville bass players, and they did some other styles, I think. So it's yeah, I don't know. Ryan can probably tell us more if he's so inclined in the live chat. All right, so let me start this. So how did you start? How did you get interested in music? When did you start?
I started playing. I've kind of played in some fashion since I was really, really young. I played guitar when I took guitar lessons when I was really tiny, like just big enough to hold a guitar. And though it didn't really go very far, I mean, I never really got that good at it, but I played guitar and played some piano when I was in middle school. I don't know, maybe like 13, 14. And I think one of the big inspirations for me was that my dad's best friend was a bass player in a band that played old country music and rock and roll and stuff like that around San Antonio, where I was from. And so that was always kind of around. He would play parties and stuff. If my dad would have a party, his band, Bud, Lukey, and his band Morning would play. And I would, I think that had kind of like a formative, it was sort of formative in my seeing people do this and have fun and make a living doing it. And so, yeah, I guess when I started out, it was more like oldies. Oldies was kind of like what they called what they did, you know, and that led to like, you know, like rockabilly music. So when I was in high school, I started playing more rockabilly, Johnny Cash and Elvis Presley and stuff like that. And then kind of followed the rabbit hole down toward older and older musics. And yeah, I guess that's more or less how I got my start.
So it was a guitar and then bass?
It was, though. I mean, when I say guitar, it was like really fundamental guitar lessons, just playing. My dog has fleas and stuff on the guitar. And yeah, and when I was young, my mom and my stepdad at the time, they always were playing music around the house. It was more like country music. And I do remember when I was really young, probably before I had an upright bass, I remember them listening to Asleep at the Wheel and thinking that was really cool. And then Sleep at the Wheel had one of the Bob Wills records they did, and I feel like that was, I like kind of clung to that. And I also remember looking through the liner notes of that and seeing all these great Austin musicians that maybe at the time I didn't know. I could be getting my timeline wrong here, but I remember looking at these musicians just going like, I wonder who this is. I wonder who this guy is. You know, I want to know who this is. And but at the time,
who was the bass player on that record? Was it Tony Garnier?
I'm not exactly sure which record that was. I think it was probably, I mean, it must have been. I don't know how many Bob Wills records they did.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I remember Dave Biller was on guitar. That's the main.
Oh,
when I mean, I was really impressed with the guitar playing. But definitely like there was a time I was playing electric bass first, and then it was kind of like I got to get an upright bass if I'm going to play this stuff. So I actually sold my electric bass and took the money and bought an upright bass.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it was acoustic guitar first, and then electric bass, and then you switched to the upright.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when I say I played drums for like a summer. You know, I played piano. Piano, I really took lessons when I was in middle school, and I took lessons, and I really wanted to be a piano player. And so that was the first time I really like applied myself to an instrument, was piano. Though you wouldn't know by hearing me play piano now, because it's not like I'm not that great at the piano, but not until I arrived at the bass did I really like apply myself. Like I want to be really good at this. It just fit my personality, I think, you know.
I think that taking piano lessons, it's really helpful, you know, to figure out the harmony, especially when you're a kid, like harmonies, and then to make your both hands kind of function separately.
Yeah.
Which, you know, we don't really do on upright, and you would play one counterpoint melody or something. But so I always thought that piano lessons are really helpful. I took some as well in my music high school, but I didn't get too far with that.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely there's something to actually struggling with the piano for me, I think helped my ears a lot, because you know, I wasn't that fast or proficient, but I could hear voice leading and where chords were going and stuff like that. So I think it still made an impact on my ears, even though I never got technically that proficient at the piano.
You mentioned that you had formal education. So you were taking lessons piano and guitar and then upright bass at the conservatory, or you were taking some lessons for bass before the conservatory as well?
No, so the only formal lesson, I mean, on guitar, it was probably just a couple months really, and I was really young and I didn't like it. I didn't want to go. And then piano was also, I don't know how long I took piano, maybe for a year or something like that. And then I didn't really study music after that for, you know, in earnest until I was out of high school. I mean, I taught myself as much as possible and listened to players and tried to emulate them, but not until after I had recorded and toured, and then I got an offer to go to Texas State University, and I went there and studied, which was like overwhelming because I really didn't know how to read music that well, and I kind of like crammed over the summer and got in and played, and that was like boot camp for me. It was just kind of interesting that it was so late in my career. I mean, I'd already recorded and toured and stuff, so it was kind of backwards from what most people do.
And that's a conservatory?
No, it's not a conservatory. It's just like a state university that has a music college. Mm-hmm. And there's a trombone player named Freddie Mendoza that played in Austin with a band called the Jazz Pharaohs, and Ryan was the bass player in that band, and I went and like subbed for Ryan for a month or two. I can't remember. Maybe he was out of town or something, and Freddie. It was right after I stopped touring with CAVE CATT SAMMY, and Freddie Mendoza, who played trombone, was actually the head of the jazz program there. And so he started kind of saying, have you ever considered going to school? And honestly, I hadn't. And he kept kind of like prodding and pushing, and I had nothing else to do. I was living in San Antonio, and I just stopped touring, and I didn't really know what I was going to do. And so I said, sure. And so I went, and it was great. It was really fantastic. And then I went and I had a blast and I learned a lot. But then as soon as I got an offer to go with Arana, the Hot Club of Cowtown had disbanded, and she had hired me and Dave Biller to do a recording session. And then she said, you know, let's go on the road. You want to start touring? And so I said, bye, school.
How many years have you spent at the school?
Sorry?
How many years you spent at Texas State?
Two.
Okay.
Yeah. And
you studied classical, right?
I studied classical and jazz. And,
okay.
You know, the thing is, I didn't really, at the time, I only wanted to do music at school. So I like crammed my schedule with all music stuff. And so I kind of just did all music classes like full time. And I didn't really do a lot of the other things like math and philosophy. I did stuff that I had to do, you know, but it was really crazy. It was a crazy time because I was also playing in Austin. I had just moved to Austin. And so I was like taking on all these gigs. So I would go to school all day long, and then I would play almost every night. It was exhilarating, but it was kind of insane. Like I remember I would play with Bear McCready and Dave Biller at the Poodle Dog on Thursdays, and it would end at like 2 or 3 in the morning. And then a lot of times I would just drive straight to Texas State University, because it was like an hour south of the Poodle Dog, and I would just park in the parking lot of the school and sleep in the truck, and then like get up and then go to like music theory lessons. You know, it was it was crazy,
intense.
It was really fun for like a month, and then it wasn't fun anymore. I mean, that part of it.
And so you played all the like Kusevitsky, Dietersdorf, all that stuff at school?
I didn't really get. No, I mean, yeah, I messed around with it, but I wouldn't say that I didn't get as into the classical stuff as you have. You know, I mean, I didn't really. I wanted to play like Walter Page and Jimmy Blanton and Slam Stewart, and so I was doing that. And I mean, it would take me more than 2 years to get into Bottesini and.
Yeah. So you did. It seems that you were always into that, like a retro and vintage approach to upright bass, and like even when you played, you know, rockabilly or jazz, it was always old school style. At school, I assume that you were studying more of a contemporary styles.
Yeah, I mean, I was as far as jazz goes. The great thing about Freddie Mendoza, there were two big bands there, and he had like the A band, and the A band, he was really into the history of the music, which is why he wanted someone like me to go there in the first place. So he was playing Duke Ellington and Count Basie was like mainly what his group was doing. So it was kind of exciting. And I kept the gut strings on the bass, and I tried to play with no amp as much as possible. I mean, I definitely had a lot of guys there that thought I was crazy. And I don't know. I persevered and just kind of like played the old school stuff anyway. There were other bass players. There was a great bass player named Adam Booker who was there, and he would a lot of times if it was more modern stuff, he would take the more modern stuff, and I would take like the older swing stuff.
All right, we have more and more people here joining us. Richard Tralles, very excited. BEAU Sample today. Looking forward to hearing what he has to say and demonstrate. And John Stenzel, hey you all. Carolyn, all the regulars. Always fascinated by the decor in the background of these bass player studio spaces. So
this is the quietest place in the room.
Yeah. And Ryan mentioned, let's do a trad jazz slappers hang.
All right, I'm down.
Cool. Do you want to play something? I would love to hear you play, and obviously our viewers. What do you want to play?
So I kind of worked something up for this. A version of Up a Lazy River. I was kind of listening. I was learning. I've been working more on melodies since I'm, not playing with other musicians. So I thought I would like learn this melody from the Mills Brothers record, and then kind of try to do like a slap version of.
Sounds great.
Of the song.
Let's do it.
Okay, so
Awesome.
thanks.
I'll be your audience. So what kind of bass is that?
It's a K, actually. It's a 51K, and I have two basses, and they're both 51Ks.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I got that one from BEAU Neidlinger. Who are you familiar with BEAU Neidlinger?
I don't think so.
He was a great bassist. He died fairly recently, but he's a really remarkable bass player, and I would go out to Whidbey Island to study with him for a couple weeks every year.
Oh.
And
that's off Seattle, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
They had the Django Fest over there.
They did, yeah, which is actually the first time I met him. I went to, or maybe that's not true. The first time I met him, I was playing in Seattle, and I looked him up, but he's great. He studied with Walter Page, which was really fun because when he was really young, when BEAU was really young, he would play with Eddie Condon's group in New York, and he started studying with Walter Page as a young boy, and so he had a lot of great kind of like insight as to like the first time I ever took like a formal lesson with him. My first question was, what did Walter Page teach you? And so, but BEAU played everything from. He was mainly like a studio guy in Los Angeles for like 30 years and played with everyone and played with a bunch of symphonies. And early on in his career, he played with Cecil Taylor and Steve Lacy. Those are kind of like his like early like classic jazz recordings. But he's got a million stories. He's worth looking up. He's a really interesting guy and amazing, great teacher.
That's awesome. So you got like quite a few comments here. Neil's Brothers arrangement is one of my favorites. Great inspiration. Cloudberries, it sounds nice. And
that's my dad.
Hello, Dad.
He's the only non-bass player on here, maybe.
Jose Arana, nice. Ryan, awesome. Cheryl, awesome.
Thanks.
John, sounds fab. All right, so I have a question. Like, so what did Walter Page teach him? Did he tell you?
Yeah, he taught me a few things. The thing that I thought was the most interesting was he would have him play bass lines, and he wanted him to practice the space between the notes. So he would say, I want you to play a bass line, and I want to hear the eighth notes. So it'd go, I want to hear doom. Doom, 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 doom. First he'd say play legato, doom, 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 and then doom, doom, and then he'd say, I want to feel like the triplet, So it was kind of interesting because I feel like we sort of do that as slap bassists anyway, like we're playing between the notes. So Walter Page, I thought it was kind of interesting because I feel like when Walter Page is playing, well, like a lot of great musicians, you're hearing between the note. So he would play up here quite a bit, and he may go. He did this thing where he's like slapping but not slapping. It's like, and you would hear the. You're hearing the offbeat. So BEAU would say that he would have him play bass lines, and he would say, I want to hear, the eighth note, or I want to hear the triplet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
But with pizzicato or with just touching the string. So triple, 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 triple. Or I want it to be more straight. So it's funny because it's kind of, I don't know if it's funny, but it's like we already a lot of times do that because we're going. Or, So I thought that was really kind of like a simple. It's simple, and then when he said it, it kind of like it made me realize that that's so much a sound of Walter Page's style, I think.
That's so cool. You have one more comment. This is Malena and Lorelai. You sound great.
Oh, those are my daughters. They're at grandma's house.
Hi, Dad. This is Malena. All right. Hi, Malena. A question, like you're getting a question from Aaron. Do you teach remote or in Chicago at all?
I don't teach remotely. I mean, no, I haven't taught in Chicago in a while since we had the kids, but I never quite rule it out. I don't know how to answer that. Send me an email, BEAUSample@yahoo.com.
All right, Aaron, BEAUSample@yahoo.com,
but I would prefer to teach in person, really. But yeah, now who knows what the future holds? I may,
yeah,
yes, I need to teach.
Yeah, I started teaching remotely, and it's been pretty nice. I transferred my old regular students to remote, and I was a little bit skeptical. I was not sure if I want to do it, but then it turned out to be great. So
yeah,
I actually really enjoy it. It's fun, and I love teaching. So
yeah.
So yes, Aaron, send a message to BEAUSample@yahoo.com, right?
Yeah.
All right.
I check it every 3 days.
Yeah, you're not big on social media either, right?
Yeah, not really.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to get a hold of you.
I'm sorry.
Well, I feel extra honored, that I was able to interview you for Art of Slap Bass, 10 years ago, and then now for the Slapstream.
Right.
Where was that? That was remember that was in San Francisco.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of the venue.
Yeah, remember.
I remember it was really late, and you wanted to film me, and
yes,
and my first thought was we had just played with Deke Dickerson, and I don't know, I think it was like 3 in the morning, and I was thinking like, can I even play right now? I have no idea.
It was fun. I'm glad you did it. It was one of the first episodes that I did for the Art of Slap Bass, and it's still.
Man, I really admire your work ethic.
Thank you. I'm actually surprised that I've been able to do this Slapstream like every Saturday, and it's like 35 episodes, and then finding bass players and juggle everything. And sometimes I have something to do on Saturday, so I pre-record it, and it's pretty crazy. But I feel responsibility to do it because I don't think that anybody else would do it, and I want to document all these great bass players.
Are you? Maybe I shouldn't bring this up. Are you still working on the book that you were working on a while back?
I do, but it's been a while.
Okay.
I definitely want to finish it, but I think it's gonna wait until I retire or something. I'm very detail oriented, so I kind of want to put everything in it, and I'm checking out all these facts and everything. So I don't know. I will definitely have to do something about it, sooner than later. But
yeah,
you'll know.
Okay. So I should say before I forget. So it's interesting thing about this bass is that BEAU. So he retired and offered me the bass, and I was honored. I have this other bass. It sounds it's like the same model and same year, but it sounds very, very different. And BEAU would have his basses, when he would buy plywood basses, he would have them stripped of all the varnish, and then it's like stained. So it's like stripped, and it has kind of like almost like a butcher block stain on it or something. It's not like a real like varnish finish. And so it sounds it has a lot more sustain and it sounds more open. It's more brittle. It's less, my other one, you can like bang it around and it's fine. But he said he learned it from Israel Crosby, which I thought was kind of cool because Israel Crosby, everyone says, he played Case and like, listen to him. He's amazing. And it's true. But he said Israel Crosby would get the basses from K with no finish on them. He would just say, send me the bass, and then he would have somebody stain them. And so they were Ks, but they were not like a typical K. It was like, had no varnish on them. So anyway, so this bass has no varnish. And I think it makes the difference, I think, probably.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
So is that your first bass?
No, my first bass, the other one I use is, no, well, technically I had another really cheap bass for a really short period of time and then I got rid of it. But I've had my other bass since I was 16. So it was like, kind of like my first bass. It was the first bass I ever recorded with, no, I guess I got it really early. And it's the bass I played with CAVE CATT SAMMY and toured around and recorded all the albums with, and it's still the bass that I use anytime I have to be amplified. And then this is the one I use when I can play acoustically.
What do you use for recording? Which one?
I kind of use both of them, but I almost always 9 times out of 10 I use the blonde one back here.
Okay,
it sounds so much better. It's not. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, it's not. The other one's easier to play, but this one sounds better. So,
huh.
Yeah.
You mentioned CAVE CATT SAMMY. Is that your first band?
I had a duo with the guitar player from CAVE CATT SAMMY when we were really young. It was just the two of us. It was me on electric bass and him on guitar, and that was like our first band. We made a cassette tape with 4 songs and it was called Slapdash. And then he and I started getting more and more into like more like rockabilly stuff, and got a drummer, and then ended up changing the name to CAVE CATT SAMMY. So it's kind of like, it was always me and him. But that was like the first band that I, it was in high school.
So Slapdash, was that related to slap bass or not?
It was not.
Okay. We got I posted on the Art of Slap Bass Instagram as well. If you guys are not following Art of Slap Bass on Instagram, please do that. It's a link in the description of the video. And you have a comment on it that says, BEAU's slap solo on It Stops With Me is one of my favorites of all time. Got to talk with BEAU a few times when I worked at Lemur. Great guy.
Oh, nice. Who's that?
It's Mig's World.
Okay.
So
from Lemur. All right.
Yeah. So I guess you were at Lemur at some point.
I think it was maybe on the phone. I've never been there in person.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were a little bit, maybe they're still at the same location in Orange County, but a little bit lower. It's kind of hard to get there, but it's a great shop.
Yeah.
Let me see. Okay, so Ryan Gould says, sign me up.
For what?
I assume for when we were talking about those lessons of yours. I don't know what I was talking about. And Candice Samples, that's great bassist.
Mom.
And Coffin Bass 666, better sound and image now. And he's asking, what's up with your hair? I assume my hair, because my hair is all over the place. You're like you're ready for the gig.
Mine's like halfway down my back. Just had a cool way back.
You have a hidden ponytail. For how long have you been playing with? For how long were you playing with CAVE CATT SAMMY?
That's a good question. I've never done the math. I mean, I think probably 4 or 5 years. Yeah, I would say like 5 years, I think.
And how many albums have you recorded with him?
I think we did 5, like one a year.
5 albums.
Maybe it's 4. The first one very quickly went out of print. Or no, it's 4. Sorry. But yeah, we started when we were seniors in high school, and then went on the road like 2 weeks after we graduated, and then just kind of started touring just continuously for about 4 years.
So you were underage when you started playing?
When I started touring, yeah.
Yeah, I mean when you started touring, how was that?
It was interesting. I mean, we would have to, a lot of times we would play and we'd have to like stay outside of the club unless we were playing, which was a little annoying. I mean, I think a lot of the time, the interesting thing is I booked the tour, like, I was in school's going on, and there was a catalog called, I think like I can't remember what it was called, musician something. It was like a directory. Do you remember this? It was like a directory of the United States, like anything in the music business, like venues or record labels or anything like this. And so it's just a big directory, and you'd flip to like record labels or record stores or music venues or anything like that, booking agents. And so I just went in there and I just like got a map and mapped out where we could go. And then I just like called every single place and got their address or something. And then I sent them our CDs, whatever. My point is, I don't think anyone knew that we were underage. Like, I obviously wasn't saying that. So a lot of times it would be like, you can't come in here. What the hell are you thinking? But because we were already booked, I mean, they weren't going to like fire us, so a lot of times it'd be the same thing. The same thing would happen like over and over, where people would say, what are you doing here? You can't, what are you, like 16? So we would go on and we would play, and then they'd make us go outside. And a lot of times they would like pay us, and then we just have to leave, which would be a drag because, like Big Sandy would be playing next or something. We're like in the parking lot. And so, luckily, I think because of that, by the next time we came through, some of those venues, they liked us, or they thought we were good enough where it was like, okay, we'll have you and we'll just do that again. It'll be fine. So we would go and we would, that was kind of a routine for a while, where we would play and then we would like hang out in the parking lot, It was still really exciting. I mean, it was, and it's, the cool thing about being into the kind of music that we were into is like, it's like everyone that we admired was accessible. It's like these guys were like my heroes, and so I could go and it's not like thank God I was like a fan of the Dave and Deke combo, because I could go like meet them, and talk to them, ask them questions, and so it was just heaven. It was just like even if we were in the parking lot, it was kind of it's like something. Buell actually told me one time that he said he felt sorry for people that were getting into jazz now, because a lot of jazz musicians have become like superstars, where they're like, you can't reach them. And so if you're a bass player, maybe there's a bass player who's like super famous, and you can't just go see him at a club and then like go out back and like catch up with him, at least you can't to the extent that he was when he was a kid. And so I think like I was able to do that. I was able to like follow Kevin Smith or Wally Hersom or whoever, and not that I was like following them around, but I was the one like, excuse me, sir.
I kind of did the same thing like when I moved to the States, but I was already 25, I think. Just going around the shows and trying to meet everyone and talk to everyone and get a gig eventually. That's how I got a gig with Deke.
Right.
So
it's exciting. It's like, I am so honored and like rare, the rare time when somebody comes up and someone's doing that, it's a young person, they saw something I'm doing and they're moved. it's just like I instantly get excited. Like I remember being like that.
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's great. It's just like, it's kind of how it should be, like passing it on in person.
I absolutely agree. But by the end of CAVE CAT SAMMY, I assume you guys were, you were not underage anymore, right?
No, I was 22, I think, when we stopped playing.
And you stopped because you were moving, or?
I'm doing the math.
Okay.
Oh no, I stopped just because we just, people wanted to do different things.
Okay.
It was like,
because you were fairly successful on that scene.
Yeah, I think so.
Especially for kids.
Yeah. Kids loved us. No, I think this is, everybody wanted to kind of do their own thing, and we were all really young. And I think a lot of the guys in the band, luckily their parents like let them do this. So, like, I mean, it was kind of remarkable that somehow all of us convinced our parents that, we had no hopes for careers. We might as well do this, So anyway, I think the deal was some guys wanted to try different careers and wanted to play different styles of music and stuff like that. And so, yeah, it kind of happened like, I think it was kind of mutual. I think that's my version of the story.
All right. Are you still in touch with them?
Yeah. I actually just talked to Steve, the guitar player, like a day ago.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
After CAVE CAT SAMMY, what was next?
So that's when I kind of played. I was traveling so I was living in San Antonio, and I was traveling up to Austin to play as much as I could, and then that's when I played those gigs with the Jazz Pharaohs, and then got the offer to go to Texas State, and then so yeah, basically that was right after. And then I think I had told you that. So I was playing around Austin and going to school at the same time.
And you started touring. I mean, so during your school years, you were mostly playing local gigs, and after that you joined Arana.
Right. Yeah, and I was playing with Dave Biller a lot. We had a trio, or he had a trio, and I played bass in it. And Paris.
Is that the same trio that he plays with Billy Horton now?
Yeah, it's kind of the same. I mean, I would say it's Dave playing guitar and he does his stuff, and yeah, just the Dave Biller trio. The time it was me and Paul Ward, the drummer from CAVE CAT SAMMY.
Oh, okay, cool.
And then it switched to a guy named Jason Friedrich, and I was playing with them, and then I was playing with a band called Paris 49 with Olivier.
Was that with Olivier?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And so
that was like a gypsy swing type of thing, if I remember.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
It was like Django Reinhardt stuff, like electric Django stuff. And yeah, and playing around as much as possible, and wanting to really get more into like old jazz music. So yeah, I was staying pretty busy.
Austin seems, I mean, at least back then, was kind of the city where you could play like several times a day, right?
Yeah, you could, and you had to a lot of times.
I mean, I remember seeing Ryan Gould's schedule on MySpace, and it was just like, dude played, I don't know, 50 gigs per month or something. It was something crazy.
It's exciting. It was really exciting to do. I mean, yeah, because it was like waking up and having something to, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's like you feel so productive when you're waking up and playing all day long. It's like there's this adrenaline rush that I think like guys were, it's probably the same thing that the old guys were feeling in New York and Los Angeles, where you had a session, then another session, then a gig, and then a session, then another session. It's like after a while, I feel like it's so exciting. But then inevitably, I would get to this point where I would just crash.
No, yeah,
after months of that, but
because there's no break, right?
No, well, it's like hard. I mean, it's still hard for me to say no, like to stuff. It's actually, it was really hard. It's getting easier and easier now in the last few years. But that's the reason I moved to Austin. I think that's the reason a lot of people move there, is because, like, man, it's like all these amazing musicians. Like, why would I say no to any of these gigs? You know, it's like
Austin is amazing.
Yeah, it was exciting, and it was like I was learning so much, and I was playing with these people that I just admired. It's like I feel like every band that I was in, I was like the weak link of the band, so I was trying really. I feel like I'm most comfortable when I'm the weakest person in the band, or maybe I just tell myself that.
Oh, I'm sure you were not the weakest. You know, your playing was always amazing. Do you remember, how did you get into slap bass?
So I think that the two things, well, I think the two clinchers for me were like Wayne Hancock and High Noon. It was the first time I'd ever heard. Well, actually, let me go back. I mean, I would say the first time was listening to Johnny Cash and Carl Perkins and Elvis and those recordings. But then there was like the real motivation, I think, came from seeing Wayne Hancock and hearing High Noon and wanting to. It was so amazing that you could drive a band with no drums, you know, and so I started to like seek out. Rick Ramirez was the bass player on a lot of those Wayne Hancock records, and he had a band. He played in a band called the Dead Crickets in San Antonio, which then became 2 Tons of Steel. And I would just go see him play as much as possible, and try to see and listen to Kevin Smith as much as possible, and try to like emulate those guys, you know.
I always thought that I can hear like big Kevin Smith influence on your playing, especially back in those old days. So he was an influence.
Yeah, he was a great influence. I mean, his playing and just on like how to, I think I learned, I don't know. I mean, I kind of said this maybe in that forum thing we did a little bit, but it was like just the fact that he was so generous with his knowledge. Like, to me, like there was no competitiveness. There was no like, get out of here, I don't have time for you, or it was like, he will freely share anything he has, you know, with you. And so I think I was inspired by that also, and yeah, of course, listening to his records and trying to play like him.
Kevin is amazing. Kevin is amazing. I featured him on the first episode of the Slapstream, and I think it went pretty good. So if you guys haven't seen it, make sure to browse on my YouTube channel. I find great Kevin Smith.
I remember very vividly, like one of the first times I played in Austin with CAVE CATT SAMMY, and Kevin was playing across the street at on 6th Street, and I remember he walked over and like walked into the play. I had this like, you know, this experience where he walked in, then I just instantly like couldn't play. I think it may have been like I don't know if I knew him yet or not, but it was definitely one of those. It's like I was saying, like it's like how, you know, it's like Kevin Smith was and is a hero of mine. So the fact that he walked in, it was like, okay, well, I'm done. We got like the base equivalent of like tongue tied.
Ryan, he just posted a comment. He said like 6 gigs in a day was my record. What was yours, Bo?
Oh God, I don't know. I'm sure it's not 6 gigs in a day. I do know I played a gig in No, I don't know how many. I know I played a gig in Chicago not long after I moved here where the gig itself was like 14 hours long or something like that. It was like from sun up to sundown with like
Wow.
15-minute breaks. It was ridiculous. But that's just one gig.
Wow.
But I don't think I've ever approached, I don't know, I've probably played 3 or 4 gigs in a day, probably.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I definitely did not play as much as Ryan.
I think that Ryan has the record for that. Sasha is asking you about Hot Club of Cowtown. I think you haven't recorded with Hot Club, right? You were a touring bassist, right?
Well, so no, I didn't record with the Hot Club. I recorded with Arana when she kind of went out on her own.
Okay.
And then we did like tours under her name, and then Whit rejoined the band, and then it was like he was a hired guitar player, and then they started going by the Hot Club of Cowtown again, and then around that time I came to Chicago, and Jake rejoined the band. So
it was Billy Horton, then Jake, then you, and then Jake again.
No, it was, and I wouldn't say. I mean, I wasn't probably officially a Hot Club member. It was like this weird thing where it was like it was Alana's band, and then we started going by like Alana, James, and the Hot Club of Cowtown, and then we did like a tour where it was just the Hot Club of Cowtown, and so. But Matt Weiner was in there too for a while.
Ah, okay. You know, I haven't met that guy.
Oh yeah, he's great.
Okay.
I could introduce you. He's a really great bass player.
Did he play with the Silent Street Spankers as well?
He did, yeah.
Okay.
And he lives in Seattle. I'm
familiar with his name, I think, from the Spankers albums, but I don't think that I ever met him.
He's great. So, and Kevin used to play with the Hot Club of Cowtown too, which was always fun. I have like really vivid memories of watching them play at Green Hall where he was on bass.
Nice.
But kind of the same thing. I don't think he was like a member of the band. They would hire him for a tour or some shows, or you know. And now the Hot Club has another bass player that I can't remember his name.
I think it's Zach.
That sounds right. Yeah. Do you know him?
Yeah, I do know him.
Okay.
I if it's the guy that I'm thinking of, then I gave him some lessons 15 years ago, maybe, or something.
They paid off.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the dude. I haven't been in touch with him since then, so I'm not 100% positive, but I think that's him.
Yeah.
Rodrigo Montovani is here, and he wrote, "Awesome. Bo is a great bassist and great guy. I'm glad he's around, and I miss to go listen to him live." Rodrigo. So you guys both live in Chicago now, right?
We do. It's great. You know, it's unfortunate that we didn't, like hang out more before the before the pandemic.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm looking forward to is when this pandemic is over to get together and hang with Rodrigo. But yeah, he's just moved here not too long ago from Brazil.
Yeah, I think about a year, a little bit over a year ago or something. I featured him on the Slapstream, a couple of weeks ago, and he has excellent, old school blues approach.
Oh man. Yeah.
Do you want to play something?
Sure. Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
So, yeah. I'll play another, one of the things that I've been working on. So another melodic thing I've been working on is like taking melodies that maybe I knew and trying to play them with like single slaps. So, so this is Mean to Me, a little something that I worked up. Thanks. I've been trying to do more like keep my hand loose and play more, you know, more like single note slap stuff. And so taking these melodies and working them up has been like very helpful to sort of get some dexterity in my right hand. Yeah.
It's kind of like an old school approach.
Right. Yeah, it is. Yeah. And you know, playing with the Fat Babies, which is the band that I started a while back, it's like it's much more of that approach, like single note slap stuff, and playing even like Bill Johnson stuff, where it's like super fast and so it's been kind of helpful to put the metronome on and try to play those single notes and get them fast enough where I don't sound like I'm struggling, you know.
Absolutely. We were talking about using a metronome, and you told me that you have like a different ways how you use metronome when you practice. Do you mind telling me a little bit more about it?
Yeah, I mean, so I basically what I do is, or what I do when I'm practicing regularly is putting it on different beats. So I may have it on 1 and 3, or I may have it on 2 and 4, or sometimes I may have it on like a triplet. So I don't know if you can hear that. Can you hear that?
Yes, I can hear it perfectly. Yeah.
So I would, you know, or I may do it on 2 and 4. Or I may, so, dude. Or, and I'll probably show how to practice I am, but I'll try to put it on like the 3 of a triplet. Check, 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 check. Is that making sense?
Absolutely, and I never seen that, and it sounds cool. Have to try that.
I mean, and you can do it, you know, whatever. You can do it obviously on anything, or do it on, if you're playing something straight, it can be, you know, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But what it forces you to do, especially when you're putting it on, say, like I'm just going to put it on beat 1, or I'm going to put it on beat 3. It's like forcing you to fill in those. It's forcing you to fill in the beats without relying on the metronome. If you know what I mean.
Yes.
Especially when you put it on like the last beat of a triplet. So it's like you're creating the groove. You know, it's doing that. So I like to play around with that as much as possible. It's kind of like swinging 3 bats before you go up to the plate.
Yeah.
Like it forces me to like work on these muscles. And then I feel like when I'm actually playing and that's off, it's like freeing in a way. So
it's a really cool. Have you incorporated that lick that we were talking about, the Slam Stewart lick?
Yeah. So yesterday you'd asked me this. I was impressed with your memory of like, remember 11 years ago when you mentioned the Slam Stewart song?
Yeah.
There's a recording from the 70s on the Black and Blue label of Slam Stewart playing just a duet with Joe Jones on drums. It's called Messin' Around, I think, or Foolin' Around or something like that. And it's a really fast rhythm changes song. And I think he's in B flat. And when he goes to they're trading back and forth, and when he goes to the bridge, Slam does this. Never heard him do it. I've never heard him do it any other time, and I've listened to almost everything he's ever recorded, and I've never heard anyone else do that. And so I started incorporating it into it. So when you mentioned it the other day, I thought I would, you know, play the end of that "Mean to Me" song. I kind of like took that lick and I went. Like that. So I just did the lick with like a diminish. Like that.
It's really cool. You know, I remember when we talked about it, and then I don't remember even if we had a bass with us, but I remember that you said, you know, Slam Stewart did like this crazy lick that was he's switching the beat, and then I think you sent me the song, and then I was like, oh, this is cool. This is like a variation of a rumba. That's the way how I remember it, because I usually say like, all right, rumba is 3-3-2, and this was 2-3-3, just a little bit different. Do you mind showing me that lick?
No, I don't.
All right, so you can explain it while I'm grabbing my bass.
Yeah, so it's so basically it's actually technically not as hard as it sounds like. It kind of like throws you off kilter, but it's really just a quarter note on beat one. So we'll do I don't know, we'll play a C, and it's it's 1, 2, and 3, 4. That's the first. Are you there? I can't see you.
Yeah, well, I'm here. I'm grabbing my bass.
Oh, I thought you were doing a costume change. You go 1, 2, and 3, 4. So
all right. So we're doing that in B flat.
Sure. I was playing a C. Oh, sorry. The lick in the song. Yeah, let's do it on a B flat, like the song I just did. So it's okay. First, let's learn the lick with just one note.
Okay.
So it's. Yeah, so it's 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. So it starts with. So repeat something that was like.
Yeah. Here's the first bar.
Okay.
Okay, so it's 1, 2, and 3, 4. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And then. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's 1, 2, and 3, 4, and then the next bar it starts with 1 on the board. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you put them together, it's. Yeah.
Okay.
It's one of those things where it's like, once you get the hang of it, it's like really easy to do really fast. I don't know what it is. It's like something, it lays right once you get the hang of it. So when you're playing like something fast, it sounds more impressive than it is. But the way I did that lick was. So every time I play a note, I'm going up a diminished arpeggio. So B flat, D flat, E. Yeah, all the way up to a D. This D flat.
B flat, D flat, E, G, D flat, D flat.
Right.
Okay. All right. Let me just try like on one note first. Right. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's, you know, the way I see it as a kind of, if rumba is this, then if I just switch the order, if I do 2-3-3 instead of 3-3-2, if I do, and then instead of that first, I do just regular gallop. That's kind of like the way I remember it, and it'll help me understand. So maybe some of you viewers, bass players over there, that will be helpful too. Let me try to play it in a tempo.
Yeah, that's great.
Right. Cool.
I think that's so. It just makes me wonder. Just the fact it's so unlike anything else he's ever done, and I just think when if you listen to that record, there's 2 takes of that, and it's almost just like they're just it's called messing around. They're just messing around, and so anyway, it's really neat. But I
wonder what other licks he had in his head, like since he used this one just in this song.
Right. Yeah,
Who knows what he was playing live? It's amazing.
Yeah, he's definitely. I mean, he's not known as a slap player. The thing about Slam that I love is his sound when he's playing pizzicato is like this. I don't know. It's like a thumb 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 sound. So it's always like, I don't know if you can hear it precisely over this, but it's like it's off the fingerboard. Have you ever seen any of those videos of him playing?
I don't think I did.
I mean,
I did, but mostly like with him playing with the bow.
It's always this thing. He played a K too, and whatever. And he played a K, and he would play in this sort of circular motion where it has like a thumb 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 thumb. It's such a pleasant sound to me. It sounds like him. I don't know if you've ever heard him. Even like the way he speaks, he's so sweet and oh yeah, it's so beautiful. And I just feel like his playing is just like his demeanor.
He was so cool, like great, amazing player, amazing groove, amazing intonation and everything. I love the guy.
A friend of mine in town, there's a really great bass player in town named John Bainey, and he interviewed Slam. They kind of became friendly, and they would hang out whenever Slam was in town. And he gave me this cassette tape where he interviewed Slam, and I thought you could sum the whole thing up. Like his personality was such that like John Bainey calls him, and Slam is in the middle. He had just started eating dinner, and he says, like, oh well, I'm sitting. Oh, John, it's so nice. I'm having dinner, and he goes, oh, well, maybe I'll call you later. Then he goes, oh, no, it's fine. And then he proceeds to have like a 2.5-hour conversation about bass playing. Like he just puts his dinner aside and just starts talking. I feel like he must have just been the sweetest guy. He's probably the kind of guy you could approach backstage at a show and he would tell you everything,
That's so cool. I wish we had a chance to do that. Do you still have that cassette tape?
Yeah, I do. I have Alex Hall, the engineer here in town, he digitized it.
Oh yeah, I want to have it.
I can send it. Yeah,
please do.
Definitely.
I would love to have that. Do you perform solo?
No, not really. I'm not much into soloing. I mean, playing like this, like I'm doing right now, is not my comfort zone. I mean, I'm much more prefer playing in groups of people and I really enjoy, being the foundation of the band, and so I don't really do a lot of solo playing.
I think when we are like, we as bass players, we usually think about, being a team player, not, up front guys. And yeah, not really like a solo performers, but some of the guys, like the guy that I interviewed last week, Adam Ben Ezra, I seen his show. It's amazing. He's able to, pull it off and on very high level. It's really impressed.
Yeah.
Do you know how many albums you recorded so far?
I have no idea. Was that a question somebody sent? Or that...
No, it's my question.
Oh, I don't know, actually. I know that I've taken all the records and CDs I'm on, I put them on my bookshelf, and it's about...
Oh, yeah, okay.
I don't know. I haven't counted.
Now.
I haven't counted. Oh, it's like that many albums. About how much Bob Moore recorded in a month I've done.
And from now on, probably everything going to be on Spotify, not on on CDs. So it's going to be
right.
It's going to stay like that.
Yeah, like half a thumb drive worth.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of sad when you say it like that.
I mean, I'm really fortunate that in town, Alex Hall. Do you know? Have you met Alex, the drummer?
Oh yeah. Every time I'm in Chicago, I like always make an effort to go to Green Mill and see either you play or Joel, and it's usually Alex there. So I see him every time I'm in Chicago.
He's a really, really amazing recording engineer, and I'm just lucky that he has this great studio in town, and people come to town, and a lot of times they'll hire me and Joel and Alex or local. There's like this kind of Chicago group of musicians that gets hired often to back up people when they come into town, which
nice
to me is like my favorite. It's so much fun.
That's all Jimmy Sutton's studio?
Yeah, it's Jimmy's old studio. Yeah.
Yes.
So it was called High Style, and Alex ran it, and he and Jimmy built it. And so I don't, maybe that's not accurate. Maybe Jimmy built it. I don't know. But basically they're both very instrumental in the studio. But so when Jimmy moved, Alex took it over, and now it's called Reliable Recorders. And he's great.
You guys are Chicago sound now, I guess.
Yeah, that's kind of it. Me and Joel, I mean, I feel like me and Alex and Joel, we get to play with a lot of great people from lots of different kinds of music. I mean, jazz and blues and rock and roll and honky tonk country rock and roll. And so
what's going on with Modern Sounds? Is that project still going on?
It's not really it's hard because it kind of like morphs into, the three of us play together a lot. And we play, we play together, but we kind of, a lot of times we're doing what Joel wants to do. He leads the band. And so sometimes we'll do a show and it's all jazz, and sometimes we'll do a show and it's all like rock and roll and we're singing and or a mix of all kinds of stuff. Or we've done quite a few of these records that he's done where it's like guitar records. And so we'll play that material a lot. So I don't know if you call that the Modern Sounds or what you call it, but it's the three of us and we're playing. So it's more or less, we play together a lot. Yeah.
You have a question from Fernando. What kind of exercises do you recommend to be able to play setbacks? I mean, when you play solos, you don't play quarter notes all the time.
So I don't know what setbacks would be.
Me neither. I'm not sure. I think that he's asking you how to get out of that quarter note playing. I mean, the way he explained it later. So I assume that's what he's saying, because you incorporate like 8 notes and different different patterns, different slap patterns. So maybe like what kind of exercises do you recommend to expand your vocabulary maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I have worked on that kind of helps me in that regard is like working on like rudiments, slap, almost like slap as almost like drum rudiments. So so I'll almost try to play it like a drum or like a tap dancer or something. So I may I'm not fingering any notes, and so that way when I want to play something melodically, you know, I'm either putting this rhythm in between the notes, or I can try to think of how to answer this. I mean, I think the best way to do it would be just work on rhythmic rudiments. And then learning a melody and then trying to put those in between what you're doing. So this one I'm basically doing almost like the Joe Zinkin thing where he's putting that in between all the notes. I think that is kind of what he's asking. Does that sound right?
I think so. So I have a question now, since we were talking about different slap patterns, and then we just touched that subject a little bit. What are the patterns that you use, and how do you call different slap patterns? What is the terminology that you use?
Are you talking about like how people say like quadruplets or triplets or?
Yeah, I mean, I talk like how do you call it, and what do you use?
I don't really. I think I typically would call them more like 18ths or I mean 16ths or 8ths, or you know, as opposed to, I mean, yeah, you have a triplet or you have 8ths, or like a 16th where it's 1E and a 2E and a 3E, like a, you know, 1 with 2 16ths. I don't really know. You know, a lot of people call these quadruplets. I don't really know. I've never heard anyone but a bass player use that. Maybe it's just me, but have you ever heard anyone non-bassist say quadruplet?
You know, I never thought about it, but probably not.
Because it's really just like 16th note. I mean, depending on how you're playing, it's like 1E and a 2E and a 3E and. So I would call that 16th notes. You have like swung or straight, which is kind of like the beginning of that mean to me. Like instead of going, I'm sorry.
Okay. So when you start, so what would be the basic for you? So you don't use like a single slap, double slap, triple slap type of thing?
I don't. I mean, I guess I don't. No, I guess I don't. I would just say quarter notes. Quarter note. Okay. And then, you know, quarter note with an 8th note slap. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Triple and triple and triple and triple. 16th notes. You know, quintuplets, right? You could probably do that better than me.
And how, but like, how would you call this?
So, I mean, I would say that that's like
2 16ths.
Yeah, an 8th and 2 16ths. I guess now that you're asking me, I guess I don't really talk about it much. I'm analyzing as you're saying it.
I was wondering, like, you know, like when you do like master classes, you teach master classes occasionally, right?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, when you do slap, you know,
yeah. So yes, I would say it more. I mean, a lot of the times that I'm teaching these classes, like at a bass conference or something, it's like classical bassists that I'm teaching slap to. So I'll just use, you know, regular like rhythmic notation, you know,
like a quarter note,
triplet,
16 triplets and all that. Okay.
And then a lot of times I'll get into like working on triplets, for instance. Like I make a good exercise actually is that I found useful is playing triplets. Like say we'll start with triplets. So it's like triplet, 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 and then triplet, 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 and then maybe I will have the class say, you know, like let's omit the middle one. So then you get a so it would be triplet, you know, so it's like a shuffle. Triplet, triplet, triplet. I can't say it and do it at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Like a shuffle. Or take.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Something like that.
Right. Or take out.
When you skip the middle one. Okay.
Let me put this on. So try to find a good tempo. Try to take out. So try that. You just did it. It's like a
yeah, I can do it, but you know it's not going to work with your metronome because of the.
I'll stop
it. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really should sound like a shuffle, like and then, all right, I'll turn the metronome off. I feel like it's complicated. But it should have a yeah, I think you're doing it.
Okay. You're talking, but you're still not doing the second one, right? So we're still talking about this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then maybe saying like take out the first two notes of the triplet and doing the one in the middle. So it's triplet, 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 triplet. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay. I didn't understand this. Like, so in this case, what do you do?
One moment. I'm gonna write it out. Is that too annoying?
No. Actually, I prefer that.
Okay.
Lesson with BEAU.
Slow.
You guys have your basses with you.
I don't know if you can see this. So, you know, I may say like start with.
Okay. Let me.
So try that.
But not like this.
No.
Like,
no.
That's what you're talking about?
Right?
Okay.
I wish I had like a chalkboard. So then the second one would be like, try that. Actually, this is going to be interesting because I'll show you something that's kind of cool. I mean, let's see. Thank you for holding.
Yeah.
So this would be the next one.
Well, that's hard without a metronome.
Well, try to slap the eighth note.
First and third, or just first?
No, like try to slap all the eighth notes.
So okay, so
yeah.
You know, it's interesting that we were talking about this. About a half a year ago, so I was started filming some bass lessons, and then I got like more into analysis of things, like how do you do like a different approach, and then I started thinking about those things when you can actually play a note or slap in the patterns like this, which are not common.
Okay. Right. It's kind of like forces. I mean, obviously, I'm out of practice. I'm not doing it that well, but it like forces you when you do it more often. It forces you to have like it's almost like a different vocabulary. It's like in your vocabulary. One of the things that I like learned recently is that if you put those last two patterns together, then it looks like this. Like if you put those together, it actually makes like quarter note triplets. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
So if you play that, it actually gives you like quarter note triplets. Is this not entertaining?
No, it's entertaining for me. So, and I'm,
so try, if you try that, it's going to give you quarter note triplets. And then here's the cool thing. This is like super geeky bass stuff.
So if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, it's right?
No, so if you add slaps, sorry, I may not be explaining this very well.
So you didn't add, so I thought that you wanted without these palm slaps, whatever you want to call them, in between.
Every time
in between.
Every time you see the rest, if you put a slap in there, which I guess I could have notated.
Oh, you're talking about the higher one. I was just playing the lower line.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, the higher one.
Oh, okay. So so 1, 2, 3, 4. Right?
So here, let me play this for you. Well, it's probably me not explaining it very well. So hold on. This metronome was annoying. Okay, so basically, I realized that if you put these slaps in there, you actually end up doing almost like the ransom nulling like triplet thing. So it's like, we're doing, and we're doing, so you have does that make sense?
Like a first line or a second line?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
So are we talking about a first line or a second line that you wrote?
The top line. I shouldn't have.
The top. Okay.
But the top line.
Okay.
If you,
that one. Oh, okay. So okay. So the one. So can you make it like a little closer?
This is why I don't do it remotely. Remote teaching.
So there's like this one, and there's okay.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, the interesting thing is if you're not hearing a beat, if you're not playing in relation to a beat, it just sounds like.
Yeah, I got it. Like, so if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, so I'll play like a regular triplet and then go to this thing.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. All right, there you go.
think so.
Okay.
So so if you put that in like a line, I mean,
it's really cool. It's really cool.
It ends up being quarter note triplet. The reason I'm saying this is quarter note triplets is something I have trouble with, like playing a, and then you know, you've probably heard the Ransom Knowling stuff where, you know, Bricks in My Pillow, where he's playing Kansas City, and he's doing his version of this, but he's doing exactly this. Obviously, I mean, not obviously, he probably wasn't thinking of it like this, but I realized that it lines up those triplets. So you're going. It's interesting to me.
I got it. Yeah, it's a different approach. It's interesting approach, and I'm glad you explained it with the paper. It's awesome.
I hope it wasn't like overcomplicating it.
No. Like, I prefer when you write it down, and then it makes, and then you played it with the metronome, so it's great.
But it's interesting because kind of like going back, I mean, sort of related to that Walter Page thing, where it's like hearing and feeling the subdivisions and the offbeats. So now, since I've started thinking of it like this, when I'm playing just quarter note triplets without slaps, I'm feeling that. Is that?
Yeah.
So, you know, even if I'm not slapping it, I'm feeling that, which instantly made it a lot simpler for me. Yeah.
Let me try to play a little bit first without slaps.
Yeah.
Cool.
And Ransom Knowling, I mean, he starts these, I think, on beat 2 when he's doing like on Kansas City. Something like that. Rodrigo knows better than me. but it's the same kind of, it's so cool. It's like, I don't know. It's
really cool. Like,
exciting. But that's all anyway. It's one of those things I heard forever, and I never realized, like, he's just doing quarter note triplets, but he's like slapping in between all of them.
Yeah.
It's neat.
It's amazing how much you can do just like with that, you know, single or double slap, whatever you want to call it, and then apply it with the different rhythmical patterns.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Well, thank you for showing this.
Sure.
Awesome.
Sure.
Let's leave our bases. Okay.
So actually, I'm just thinking right now, because you just said that, it's like something else that I have a question. Have you ever heard anyone do this?
Let's see.
It's such a simple thing, but I don't know if I've ever heard anyone do it. I mean, I'm sure it's been done, but playing triplets where you're going. Is that something you've ever heard?
I do it, but I'm not sure if I heard it, you know, anyone doing it, but I know what you're talking about. I'm not sure who would play something like that. I mean, except maybe you.
Or you.
Yeah, I don't.
It's another simple thing that for some reason I didn't even consider doing until I've been playing for years and years. Like, oh yeah, I could play triplets like yeah.
You know, when I started thinking about that, like switching the note with slap and then playing all of that in different rhythm patterns, then you can come like to all these crazy ideas. If we're talking about like 16th notes, if you play first slap and then second is note and then two slap, and like all of those combinations, that it opens up a whole new world of slap.
That's one of the things that there's a great book that Bob Haggart made. The first jazz bass method book is the Bob Haggart book. Have you seen that before?
I do, yeah.
Okay, and he has like a section on slap bass in there, and that's one of the things he talks about, which is like starting on, you know, the slap instead of the note. I don't know. I almost grabbed my bass again, but
I have that book, and Kevin Smith was the one that sent it to me and gave it to me. Yeah,
great.
So I actually never heard about the book until he said, like, "Hey, you have a present in the mail." So, like, wow, okay,
great.
So thank you, Kevin. All right, so let's geek out even more. Twin Peaks. How did that happen? I'm not sure if you, our viewers are familiar. You played in a third season of Twin Peaks, you know, and then you know with Joel and Alex and was it Cactus Brothers?
The Cactus Blossoms.
Blossoms, okay. But they are brothers, right?
They are.
Oh, okay, all right. So the Cactus Blossoms, and you played in it was not a Black Lodge, but it was that bar where they had live music, which I thought was like super cool and super, you know, I might have been a little jealous too. How did it come? I'm joking. I was happy that you did it, but how did that happen?
So the Cactus Blossoms, they're actually one of the many bands that came to Chicago and just hired local musicians. JD McPherson was producing their album, and he hired or suggested that they hire me and Alex, and I guess somebody gave the record to David Lynch, and David Lynch became a fan, and I guess, you know, they had heard through the grapevine that he had been singing their praises, and then they got an offer to do the show. So we went out there to Los Angeles and filmed. It was like they filmed all the music acts for the season, I guess, on one day. So we went out there and we just went up and like pantomime. You know, the coolest thing about it was when we showed, they said we don't need our instruments, which we were kind of freaking out about. Like, I don't know, I don't want to show up and there's some lame gear, even if we're not really using it. We were just kind of like, what's this going to be like? And we showed up, and somebody that worked for David Lynch had like watched videos of us or seen photos of us, and then assembled instruments that were like exactly like our gear. And so we showed up, and like Alex's drum set was there, and Joel had like a cool old amp, and I don't know, it was like, holy cow, this is the coolest thing ever. And so
wow.
So we just pantomime. It was a lot of like showing up and sitting around, and you know, with all these other bands, and then we got up and played through it, I think one time, maybe twice or something, and then it was like, that's a wrap, and that was it.
It's a hurry up and go business, as they say here. And
David Lynch was really nice, and he's like a really big music fan, and he liked the band.
And he's a rockabilly fan too.
Yeah,
I think so. And I heard that, you know, I know like a couple of people that know him, so it's interesting. But I was watching I'm a big fan of Twin Peaks, like huge, and I watched it. I was like, wow, there's Beau, there's Joel, there's like, I know these people. So I was pretty stoked.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And where did you film it? Do you remember?
It was just in like an old building that they converted into that roadhouse. I actually wasn't really a big Twin Peaks fan. It was funny because my wife is a fan, and I have some really close friends that are huge fans, and you know, the big joke was everybody was like, you don't even know how exciting this is to me. But they outfitted this building to look like the Roadhouse. And it was just like a nondescript building. And we went in, and they had it
in LA, in Los Angeles?
In Los Angeles, yeah. It was cool though, because it was just this like whatever building. I don't know what it was before. And then you go in, and they had like turned it into the inside of this Roadhouse. It was really neat. It looked like a place I'd want to hang out.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, as I said, I'm a huge fan. I read all the books. I watched like all 3 seasons. I don't know, over 10 times. I've watched the movies, like Laura Palmer's Diary, and like listen to those cassette tapes that Dale Cooper was before, like everything. So I was kind of going, especially back in the day. I was going, super. But but I was stoked to see you there. Yeah,
it was fun.
It was fun. I bet. Yeah, that's great. And I can see that they filmed the whole. I mean, there were, I guess, 18 acts, in a whole day. That must have been like a busy day.
Yeah, it was cool. He's got a style. There's something about, I don't know what it is. It's like this kind of dreamy music. It was interesting. All the bands, so a lot of them were like kind of 80s-ish, but like kind of dreamy.
Yeah.
It was really surreal being in there because they had smoke machines going on, and there'd be these bands up there. And it's like, this is like surreal, Was
there a secret? Did you have to sign that you're not going to talk about it until the show is happening?
Yeah. Actually, that's another interesting thing, is we couldn't tell any, and they were like, really serious. Don't tell anyone. Don't even tell your kids.
Yeah.
And so it was like we had to keep this thing a secret, which was funny because it seemed like, I don't know, I don't know, like my neighbors would be like, "What were you doing in Los Angeles?" And it felt kind of silly to say, "I can't tell you,"
That's so cool. Well, I'm glad you did that. It seems like an amazing experience. So we have Rodrigo's comment. He says it reminds me Milt's slap feeling those variations. All right, so we're back to geeking out. That that we were talking about. I can see that. I don't think that he played exact those same patterns, but I can see that he
did those like 3/4 thing a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's who would you say is the biggest influence on your bass playing?
I don't really, it's hard to say. I mean, I think that it would probably have to be the guys I was listening to when I first started playing, which was Kevin and Rick and Jimmy Sutton. Those are probably the three. And a lot of it was probably because I could go see those guys play, which I think was really, really an important element. It was one thing to listen to people play on recordings, but it was another thing to go be able to see somebody do this. And so I think I was really influenced by those three, partly for that reason. I'd see them as much as I could,
And you were fortunate that you were able to see them because they played. I mean, except Jimmy, but all of them played in Austin and San Antonio. Rick is based in San Antonio, right?
He was, and then he was in Austin. I don't really know what he's been up to lately, but he was in San Antonio, and he had such a smooth, easygoing style. I don't know if you've seen him play.
I did actually. I saw he was in the opening band when I played with Deke at the Continental Club in Houston.
Okay.
So he played. Was it Houston or San Antonio? So where's the second Continental Club?
Yeah, Houston.
Houston. Okay, so Houston. So and Rick was playing bass in an opening band. So I was stoked to see him and hang out with him. But that was the only time I saw him, and it had to be like 15 years ago or so.
And then when I was on, or CAVE CAT Sammy was on tour, and we were up in Wisconsin and Green Bay, and someone gave us a cassette tape. It was like a demo of the Four Charms before they had released anything. And
oh, wow.
I remember that like really blowing my mind, because it was the first time I really heard anyone playing more like jazz and blues stuff. That I've been listening to a lot of Willie Dixon, and I've been listening to a like Slam Stewart at that time, and I'd never heard anyone like, oh, they're playing like he's playing like rhythm changes and more jazzy stuff, and that was like, it was like super exciting for me to hear, and I was really influenced by Jimmy, and still am, you know, very much influenced and motivated by hearing him play.
Yeah, he's an amazing player. I featured him on the Slapstream as well, and it was a great episode. And I remember getting that that first Four Charms album in Serbia. It was close to impossible. You know, I had to ask somebody to smuggle it. It was crazy, but I was super happy when I heard it. And then I mean, I still listen to that CD. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I think they had like two albums out, like the second one, Triskaidekaphobia.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I saw them unfortunately only once, and it was their last gig at Rockin' Fest 3 in Green Bay. But it was,
I mean, really, that's the reason. I mean, the reason I'm even in Chicago is, you know, partly is because of that band. I mean, really, I guess I hadn't really completely realized it until now. But it's like, I mean, when we would be on tour, I was admired the Four Charms. I was a really big fan of Devil in a Woodpile, and had all their recordings and listened to them all the time. And every time we would come through Chicago, the people here are so inviting and nice and hospitable, constantly, you know, inviting musicians over, throwing parties for musicians, cooking food. It was like very, very nice feeling to play here, you know. And Jimmy was definitely like, you know, I'm sure it's like he would put people up in his house, and he had a studio, and it's like he was just like a patron of bands that would come through town, I guess. And it was really great. So when I met Joel, and at one point Joel was like, you know, he came down and played with the Hot Club of Cowtown. I was trying to get him into the Hot Club of Cowtown, which is funny in hindsight. It's like hard to imagine that happening, but he came down, and then we played together for like 2 weeks with Arana, and we played around Austin, and then I remember at the end of it, Joel said, you know, something like, well, that was a lot of fun. So are you moving to Chicago, or am I moving to Austin?
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I'd love to move to Chicago. I've been like fantasizing about it since I was, you know, 13. And so anyway, it worked out, and it was really exciting moving here. And then I instantly started playing with Devil in a Woodpile, which was like was amazing to me. And I still play with them. And so, yeah, I'm lucky. I feel fortunate.
That's great. I didn't know that was the reason, but it's an interesting story. It's funny how Jimmy was always for me kind of the sound of Chicago bass, and now he's in Nashville, and I guess you're the sound of Chicago bass now. And Rodrigo.
I don't know. Jimmy still sounds like Jimmy just took the Chicago bass sound to Nashville. That's what happened.
You don't think that he's going to become the country player over there?
I don't know. I'm sure if he wanted to, he could.
What would you say? How did you develop your own style of playing?
I think that probably it's funny. I was just talking to a friend of mine about this. Like this conversation came up of like learning verbatim how to play like somebody. You know, like I'm gonna learn he's a guitar player. I'm gonna learn like a Tiny Grimes solo, and it's gonna be note for note. And I think, you know, doing that and then inevitably running into your own limitations. I know I'm not the first to say that, but it's like your style is defined by your limitations. So it's like I would try to play like somebody. Maybe I couldn't do it. Maybe I would change it around or something. And I was never really one of those people that like would sit down and had the patience to like learn note for note someone's solo, though maybe I should. But I think just this hodgepodge of things like Kevin and Jimmy and Slam Stewart and Jimmy Blanton and, you know, whoever, even more modern guys. You know, Buell Neidling or Wilbur Ware is another guy I'm really interested in and a big fan of. And so it's just like anything. It's like how you speak or your vocabulary. It's just like it inevitably seeps in unless you try to purposely change what you're doing. Like I'm going to like purposely omit this. But I don't tend to do that very often.
It's I guess it's always the best way to try to copy others and then kind of create your own thing, incorporate all of that, steal all of that, and then find your own voice.
It's interesting because it's like either you have like this scale, and on one side of the scale is like learning to just copy, like someone that can do impressions, of people. It's like, that's an interesting skill, and maybe you have a talent at doing that. Or you have the other side where it's like, I can only sound like myself no matter what. Like even if I'm playing country, I sound like, Thelonious Monk playing in a country band. Well, I'm just saying there's an argument for both of those, and it's like,
I agree. Yeah.
Me or whatever to say you shouldn't just copy people because that's a skill. But somewhere in that middle is where most of us tend to be. And so it's kind of like, if I'm playing country blues, how do I play that and still sound like myself? I feel like we're all trying to grapple with that all the time. Like, I want to sound like myself, but I want to like fit what's going on, like a conversation,
You want to appreciate the style and play in the style. You don't want to sound like, something completely different.
Right. And there's this like, it's like, are you being dishonest if you like, I don't know. I've thought about this a lot because of the kinds of music I play. Like I play these kinds of music where it's easy to slip into the reproduce what they were doing at this time, or you're failing, or the other end, like if you sound like anything I've ever heard, then you're failing because you don't have your own sound, and it's just like torture. I mean,
yeah. It's always a debate, what's better. But I think that I always appreciated guys that had their own sound no matter what. And I love your style of play, your sound of playing.
Look at Deke Dickerson. It's like he's had every bass player we know in his band, and it's like that's one of the great things. Like you see Brent Harding playing, and it's like, I don't know. That's just the first thing that came to mind. Like you playing Deke sound like you, but you were still fitting the music,
Yeah.
Brent playing sound like Brent, but he's still fitting the music,
I agree. It's interesting. I've played with different incarnations of that band, and the band kind of sounded pretty different. I played with Dave Stuckey on drums. It was one way. I played with Jason Smay from the JD's band and Lost Straight Jackets. It sounded differently. Then with Chris Sugar Bowls, differently. With Lisa Pancratz, differently. It's I guess it depends on drummers a lot.
Yeah, sure, of course.
You have a comment. Woody, stop playing around in the background.
Oh, that's my dog.
Yeah, I know. What would you say that are the most essential slap bass recordings, by your opinion?
Oh, gee, how do you answer that? One of the things I recommend a lot is that How Low Can You Go box set that I think does a really good job of like capturing a lot of the early bass playing. I mean, I don't know what would be essential. Willie Dixon is definitely in there. I mean, Bill Johnson and Steve Brown is definitely in there. People that kind of like changed the course of slap bass, I suppose. That's a hard question. I don't know if I could decide just like what one or even a handful of recordings would be.
Yep. I have, my own favorites, but those are definitely the ones that I would include. So which song would you include from Willie Dixon? Any particular or like
3 trio stuff? Hard knock boogie beat. Oh, that's a good one.
That's my favorite.
And I mean, it also depends because, like, if you start talking about different styles, if you say gypsy jazz, you have a whole other thing. If you say, I don't know, you would have to kind of, it'd be easier to pick a style and then say, like, what do you think is this? If you're going to play blues, you go listen to, you know, Muddy Waters with Big Crawford. That's like, you got to know that.
Yeah.
You know, or you listen to Louis Vola, right? If you're going to play, you know, Django stuff. Or
Tony Rovira. They were both slappers.
Right. But if you just say slap bass, I don't even know where to begin.
With Bill Johnson or Steve Brown.
Yeah, that would work.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked a lot about like older players, and what would you say? What are the nowadays slappers that you like the most? Do you follow that, like, you know, a lot, or like you're mostly like with the guys that influenced you at the beginning?
I'm not as like up on like what's going on YouTube and Facebook and stuff. So there's probably a lot of people that I don't really. There are a lot of people I don't know about. I really like, you know, Dennis. I think Dennis Crouch is great. Have you heard him play?
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's amazing.
He comes to mind, and you know, the people I already mentioned, like Kevin and Matt Weiner, is someone that I really am inspired by. Yeah, you know, I'll probably think of 100 when we're done. But I know there are so many people out there that are playing all over the world now, and I probably am just I purposely like didn't look at a bunch of YouTube stuff before this because I didn't want to get intimidated.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like, I mean, I can't believe that I did this like for 35, you know, episodes just about slap bass. It's kind of crazy. But at least, you know, when kids get interested in it, they're gonna have like all the resources, you know, to find out about anything. So
yeah,
there you go.
I think I can't forget Ryan Gould. I mean, he's an inspiration. Like especially like for old school jazz and stuff like that. He's great. Encyclopedia.
Yeah. He mastered it.
Yeah.
Red Back Lounge wrote Dixon style is so awesome. Yes, we all love Willie. So you played like many different styles, and then you played in many different bands. I wonder, like, what did band leaders think about slap during your career? Were they always supportive? Were they always wanted you to slap, or would they, you know, sometimes say like, "Hey, can you just not do that clicky thing?"
I think I've gotten both. I mean, I think I've often got that I don't slap enough. I mean, I don't think I'm a really like aggressive slap player. I think it's not really, I think my go-to is probably pizzicato. And so I often am asked to do more, you know, like you should play more, you know, play more busy. I feel like I used to play much more slap stuff. And so if anything, sometimes people will say, you know, play more, slap more, lay in, be more, you know, out front. It's not really what I'm most comfortable doing. It's just like when it's the right time. I mean, probably one of the reasons I like Dennis in Nashville so much is like he plays slap bass, but it's like never the wrong time. You know, it's always perfect. You know,
Dennis is amazing studio and amazing all around player.
yeah.
I love his playing. Intonation always impeccable, and the tone amazing.
Another example of a guy that I think like he's never going to slap and you go like, that probably wasn't appropriate. You know, so I guess to answer your question, if anything, people are more likely to say slap more instead of slap less.
And Ryan commented, "Learn it all by watching you, BEAU."
Oh gosh, come on.
Did you guys kind of start like around the same time?
I don't know if we started around the same time. I mean, he probably, I'm not sure. I mean, I met him. I remember meeting him for the first time right when he moved into town.
Okay.
And he was.
And you already played bass for a couple of years at that point?
Oh yeah. I had already like. I mean, I was probably in my 20s. It was after CAVE CATT SAMMY.
Ah, okay.
I think, and so it was right around the time I moved to Austin. I don't know exactly when he got there, but I remember meeting him at a music store when he had just recently moved to town. And he was looking for a new bass.
Huh? Was it Violence, etc.?
I don't know if it was. It probably was. Yeah.
Okay.
And he was playing with. I can't remember who he was there with. Maybe he remembers, but he was there like going around looking for a bass. But yeah, we've definitely hung out quite a bit and thrown gigs each other's way when we were both there. And I've been very inspired by watching him play jazz.
Oh well, it was not Violence, etc. It was Charles McBride's.
Okay.
So this is amazing. You have like instant information.
I think you need a little box with Ryan, and he can be involved.
So Redback Lounge wrote, "I will take all your style, mix it, and make my own."
All right,
that's the way to go. And Laurent joined us from France. Hi. Hello from France. It's cool that people watch it from kind of all over the world. What do you have any advice like for people how to get a gig? Times changed, and I love asking this question because different generations have different approach. So what would be your advice if somebody is looking for a gig, not during Corona, but during normal times, and then what would be their course of actions, how to get a gig?
Yeah, I think one of the best ways to get a gig is just to always be around, to go out. When I moved to Austin, I went out, I saw as many bands as possible, and tried to spread the word that I was there. And then when I moved to Chicago, I did the same thing. I just went out and saw. I mean, I did it mainly because I wanted to see music, but also it was helpful because you're in people's minds. So often I would go out and I would like see a show and someone would say, "Hey, I didn't know you were in town." And then like the next day I would get a call for a gig because I was on their mind, or even if it was somebody that knew I was in town, or it still happens. Like I'll be out somewhere and run into someone and they'll, it's just almost like this, like they remember I exist and then they'll call me the next day for something, for a session or something. And, that would be I think that's what's worked for me. I don't know what it is, I don't know if that's
kind of hard to say these days. It seems that online presence is one of the most important things.
It seems like it though for me. I mean, maybe it's because I am already established enough where I don't need to do that, but it doesn't seem that it's hurt. It doesn't seem like it's hurt me. Mm-hmm. I stay really busy and so it's working for me, the fact that I don't have a Facebook page or any of that stuff. But if I was like, I don't know, I really don't think you can compete with going face to face to a show and saying, I mean, I got a gig, Alfonso Ponticelli, who's an amazing virtuosic guitar player. Uh-huh. I mean, I moved to town, I went right to the Green Mill and I said, I had met him at a festival and I said, "Hey, I'm Beau, I moved to town." And like within the week he called me, and then within like 2 weeks I was in his band and played in his band for like 8 years.
Wow.
And it was like I just think there's something to that can't be denied. It's like if he'd have like gone through the internet and seen me, maybe it wouldn't have been personal, so I'm not going to make a full-on argument one way or the other, but I'm just saying that there's something to that that's worked for me.
Yeah, that's what I'm interested to hear. Like, what works for you, and what would be your advice if you had to give an advice to someone?
And don't be a pain in the ass.
I think that's crucial.
I mean, for real, it's like I just feel like no one wants to work with someone who's a pain in the ass. Like, so.
Yeah, absolutely. if you could give an advice to your, to young BEAU or like younger players these days, are there any mistakes that you did that you would, you would like kind of like to change and or point out to your students?
I can't. It sounds dumb. I can't think of anything. I mean, I think I accidentally. I mean, I don't know. There's so many ways to go about doing this. I mean, I think the way that I started. Oh, here's something. I mean, something that has worked for me. I don't know if it's a mistake, but something that has worked for me is like putting myself in uncomfortable positions. So often I put myself into a position that's really uncomfortable. You know, a lot of times it's a band that I feel like maybe I have no, like I'm way over my head. You know, Richard Davis actually told me one time that one of the things he tells his students is like, just say yes and then figure out how to do it later. I know you can easily argue the opposite.
Yeah.
But I think I'm more likely to do that, to say like, sure, I'll do it. And then like the next day go like, oh my God, what have I got myself into? And often, sometimes I'm not answering the question. I mean, I think like, I don't really have many regrets.
I mean, you're giving an advice, and that's what I'm asking, and that's why, I hear your advice for people that are watching this like for years to come.
Sorry, my regret is that I kept the dog in here while we were doing the interview.
I'm not sure if that's a regret. Caroline just wrote, before BEAU goes, maybe we meet his dog, please.
He's gone. Sorry. Yeah. I don't really know what I mean, I guess I could say I wish I had learned to read music earlier. That seems like almost a common thing that people say. I wish I had learned that. It's kind of like that was a struggle, like playing music so long and then trying to learn to read. It was like, definitely at the time I was thinking, why didn't I do this years ago? That would be a regret, I think.
And advice like to younger folks, like to learn how to read music.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. I agree.
Yeah.
That helped me out tremendously.
Right. It's another way to think of things, like that triplet thing we were talking about earlier. It's like
what I was about to say. Yes.
It's interesting because it's like, all of our brains work different ways, but sometimes having like another way to look at something it makes it click. And I think a lot of times being able to write something out makes that happen for me, Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. It's just like when you think that kind of like more like a classical musician, and then you bring that jazz experimental mind, and then you just like want to like, what about if I do this or that? And then it's more theoretical than actually like just like an idea came out of jamming.
Yeah, but then there's also there's a chance that if you only read, then you're gonna feel like you're a reader and you're like stifled.
Yeah,
So that's
you're gonna be a classical musician.
That's the hard thing. I guess it would be like learn to read and also give just as much time to like listening to recordings and not reading anything,
I agree. I usually say, if I give an advice, to roots players and guys on our scene, I would tell them, learn how to read music. And for classical guys, I will tell them, learn how to improvise.
Yeah.
So that's the only way how you can have that, full approach. I mean, the most objective, I would say, perspective on music.
It's definitely like teaching classical players how to play country or blues or something, that's not classical can be challenging. It seems to me, though, it's maybe just because I did it this way, that it's more beneficial to learn how to play first, establish your style, just like a language. You learn to speak the language, and then you learn to read and write the language. If you learn to there's not possible, but if you were to like learn strictly from reading and writing, then it would stifle your creativity or your style, you know, right off the bat. You know,
I understand. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Do you have any recommendations for like daily practices, like scales, exercises, or whatever?
I would say one of the things that I always do that I learned from BEAU is playing, starting every practice with a chromatic scale. So often when I'm going to start practicing, I'll do long tones and I'll play. Or I may even do it, you know, super slowly, much slower than this. And up to the G and back down. And I feel like it's kind of a way to, you know, I mean, it's long tones. A lot of people say to do this, but it's like a way to sort of, it's almost like it focuses my attention and gets, you know, it gets the sound in my ear, and it's almost like a meditation to start, you know. A lot of times I'll do that to start my practices. Often I'm practicing things that I'm working on, like pieces of music. I don't do as much just practicing as I should. But yeah, that would be that's a big one for me is the chromatic scale, and making sure that you shift on, when you go up the chromatic scale, you're shifting on either your first finger or your second finger. And then when you're going down, I always shift on my fourth finger. Or my second finger. And that's definitely, that's something I learned from BEAU Neidlinger that I think has always stuck with me. He's really big on, you know, shifting, basically not shifting up when you're using your pinky because it collapses. Not shifting down when you're using your pointer because it collapses. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I never thought about it, but I agree with that approach that you should shift with first. I mean, in this case, I guess I would always use second, but like a first works too. I don't like shifting a position and right after that, like moving to a different string.
Yeah, see, this is actually something, I don't know if you'd call this my style, but this is like another interesting thing. Because when I was at Texas State, I was studying the Stewart Sankey book with a guy that learned from Stewart Sankey, the Samandal book that was edited by Stewart Sankey. He would always shift on his first or fourth finger often in that book. He's always shifting, and when he's going up, he's shifting on his pointer finger.
Interesting.
And then when I learned with BEAU, he was like, always shift on your second finger. It's the most sturdy and strong finger you have, so always shift there. So I kind of do both of them now, you know. But to answer your question, I think starting with long tones, and especially a chromatic scale all the way up the bass, is helpful. Yeah.
You have a question from Agomen. How do you shift down from the high G?
On the chromatic scale, you're going 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2. 1, 3, 2, 1. It's all 3, 2, 1 all the way down.
Sorry, I got confused. Like, so when you started, you're using third finger, right, on G?
I'm sorry, I'm saying 3, but I'm using my 4th. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's good. I'm 4, 2, 1, 4, 2.
So you're using fourth finger on G? You're using fourth finger on G? Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
I mean, you can use if you want.
Yeah.
But on this.
Okay.
For the long tones, I mean, a lot of times when I'm playing up the bass, I'll use this on the.
Yeah.
But typically, when I'm playing long tones, I'm doing that. So that would be the main thing. Start with a chromatic scale slowly, as almost like a meditation, I guess. You know.
Do you ever practice with the bow?
I do, mainly.
Okay, same here.
Yeah.
If I practice with the bow.
Yeah. I play mainly with a bow, though I don't have one right here. But I do most of my playing is like playing like Bach or trying to play classical etudes or something like that with a bow. I don't know if it's just because it's more fun to play that stuff by myself, I think, often. And if not, I'm typically working on something that I'm doing for a session or a gig or something, you know?
Yeah. And do you have any warm-up exercises before the show that you do?
I have like a couple beers. No, I don't actually. I don't like warming up. I don't
do it either, but you know, I think I should.
I don't do very well if I think I get in my head or something, or I don't know what it is. It's never worked. I wish it did, and I think I've played with people that think that that's just me like rationalizing being lazy. But, like for instance, when we had this, you know, having this podcast, if I had sat here and like practiced, I would have played worse. You know,
you like to improvise and to be, you know, to be on the spot.
Well, there's something to be said for like when I start playing and I'm like excited to hear the bass, you know.
Oh yeah, okay.
And that really goes a long way. It's like if I and in the studio, you know, it's funny. Like I'll take the bass out, tune it up, set it down, and then I don't really want to play it until we're about to play. It just works for me because then when I pick it up and I hear it, it's like this, wow, bass.
It's an exciting instrument. Yeah, only us appreciate that. Do you ever have a problem with the feedback when you play live shows?
I don't really, because I mean, I don't ever play that loudly, and I think something about, I mean, I use the same gear I've used since I was 16. It's basically a Gallion Kruger 400 RB and an Underwood pickup, and I kind of know how to get it to where actually it's really hard to make it feedback. I would have to turn it really, really loud, and if I have to turn it that loud, then I wouldn't want to play that loud.
Yeah, you always seem like to play. You never play like with loud drummer or something, like loud rock band, right?
No, thankfully.
Do you have a specific way or your own way that you like to record your bass?
I always use a microphone, and
one.
Typically, well, you know, it's funny because so much of it is the engineer. For me, it's like I don't know much about recording stuff, and almost all the recording I do in Chicago is Alex is engineering it, and he tries all kinds of different mics. There's never any like I use this microphone, you know, and I do it like this. It's like a lot of times I trust him totally, and so he's constantly messing around. I'm going to move it here. I'm going to move it here. I'm going to put it behind the bass. I'm going to do it like, and it all comes down to his ears. It's like he always makes it sound good. It may sound slightly different, but it always sounds good. And so it's hard for me to say. The only thing I'm typically pretty stubborn about is using a microphone and not a pickup. Though I wouldn't say that's a hard, fast rule. I mean, if I had an engineer like Alex that said, can we try this with a pickup? Then I would say, sure, But typically, if I can remove that from the equation, especially if it's an engineer that I'm not comfortable with, then I take the pickup off. And that way there's no pickup. So that's not an option. and actually the bass, I typically record with this bass and it doesn't have a pickup on it. So there's there's no option. So it's like
the one with no finish, that bass?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there a particular mic placement that you like the most?
I mean, it typically is, it depends if it's really a quiet band or it's like a duo or it's solo. Moving the mic really far away is like really nice.
Oh, really? Okay.
I've done some recordings like that, or I've done some overdub recordings at Alex's studio where we've put the mic far away from the bass, and because there's no other musicians and it's not bleeding over, it can sound beautiful because it's where you don't listen to a bass with your ear like that. So
okay.
But typically with a band, it's on the G string side, kind of between the F hole and the bridge.
And so when you say like far from the bass, you're talking about like a big room.
So when I say far from the bass, I mean like maybe I've done a few where the mic has been placed 3 or 4 feet away from the bass.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no rule. I mean, there's no hard, fast rule to how I do it. But I get really anxious when I'm going in and it's someone I don't know or trust. And so I tend to remove options like the pickup,
taking off the pickup is pretty good solution for saying I do not want to record a pickup.
Or if I'm playing somewhere live and I don't have a pickup. I mean, a lot of times if I'm playing jazz or blues and I want to just mic it, if you don't have a pickup, that's no option. Or I've even done something before where like Devil in a Woodpile playing a blues festival and listening to the bands going before me and going like, this is going to be a disaster. And so removing the pickup from the bass so I can tell the guy like, sorry, you're gonna have to put a mic on it.
Wow. Okay. And you don't have like a preference for the mic?
The placement?
Yeah. No, the preference for the brand and the model.
No, not really. I don't know much about microphones.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, I mean, I just wondering, like, what would you say? What is the best sound that you achieved on which record?
Oh, I mean, I'm really happy with the last couple of. I mean, I love the albums that Joel has recorded lately. We did a Beatles record, and we did a country record. Those two, I think the bass sounds really, really nice, and it's like part of it is because we're going for like the Nashville kind of sound, the classic Nashville sound. I'm really proud of the way the bass sounds on those. I mean, that's like kind of, I love playing like that. It's really simple and it's like just about a beautiful bass sound, It's almost all pizzicato, Bob Moore is really just like, he's just such an, that's what I want to sound like. When I go into a studio, I want to sound like Bob Moore.
Yeah, we all do.
That sound. Yeah. So those two records, I think, are really great. That Beatles record that we did, I think Alex did an amazing job recording that.
And as far as your playing goes, which record would you recommend for people that are not very well familiar with your recording output?
It's hard to say. I mean, anything that we released on that Ventrella, anything that I've done with Joel and Alex on the Ventrella label, I think is pretty representative, because we do like lots of different style. I mean, lots of the like older styles. So it's like, it's representative. It's not like I'm just playing 20s jazz or I'm just playing blues. It's kind of like one of the great things about that band is we just all play how we play. And then we take maybe a 20s jazz song, like Jazz Me Blues or something, and then we just play it however we want to play. So I think that's pretty representative.
I would say that all Joel records are amazing. I mean, I really love it.
Yeah.
Do you still play kind of like lots of solos like that?
Yeah.
Or I know that in CAVE CAT SAMMY you played those, if I remember correctly, Turn Up the Joint and C Jack Jump.
Yeah. Yeah, because we're just a trio, so we all solo
quite often,
quite a bit, and it's such a fun band to play with. I mean, I mean, playing with Joel and Alex is like, it's just like, it's just, we've played together so much in so many different configurations, and we all have the same background musically. It's just like, it's so easy. You know, I feel like we've all probably been in certain bands like that, where it's just like, I know what the other person's going to do and they know what I'm going to do. And if not, it's a great surprise.
You told me, like that was years ago, that you played with somebody from the Balkan circle, that you played odd time signatures. Like, was it like a Serbian music, Bulgarian or something?
Might have been Alfonso, because Alfonso, we did a lot of like Eastern European gypsy music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And there was a Serbian accordion player in the band.
Ah, okay.
A long time. And then there was the violinist was also gypsy descent, and he did a lot of like that music. I never really I'm not that good at doing odd time signatures. There's an oud player in town named Rami Gabriel that I've done some recording with, and that's probably the most I've ever played like odd time signatures.
I would love to hear that. Send me that too. You know, don't forget to send me the Slam Stewart cassette. I mean the copy, and I would love to hear that as well. Do you ever slap in odd time signatures?
I probably, yeah. It's been so long since I've done any of that, though.
I mean, that's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're great at it. It's like it's foreign to me, really. It's just not in my DNA.
Well, shuffle is in your DNA, and 7/8 are in my DNA. That's how my heartbeat goes. It's in. I wanted to ask you one question. I consider you kind of like primarily a jazz player. What do you say? Like, why do you think that slap almost disappeared since 1940 or so? Basically, since Jimmy Blanton joined Duke Ellington, slap almost became a bad word in jazz.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is as good as yours, but I think it's probably has to do with microphones. I mean, slap bass was a lot of it was out of necessity. It's like it kind of goes out of the mainstream at the same time that singing with like really loud voices went out. The like belters. The people that had to get up and sing with no microphone, or all of a sudden music became more intimate. You had microphones. You were recording bands in these more intimate recordings, and pizzicato was, you could pick up the nuances more, I think. I would say that's probably the main reason. I think it is interesting that it's like slap bass is considered old timey, but arco is not. I never understood that. you know. But yeah, that's what I would think. What do you think? I mean, the music actually, yeah, I think it has to do with microphones.
I think it's probably like many different factors, and I think that they just consider that, like, just passé, just like a trend is gone. That's like how, you know, we did it back in the day. We're not doing that. It's now we're doing something progressive. But a thing that I never understood is like, you know, you can play progressive styles, or, you know, different scales, or, you know, different melody lines, counterpoints, and everything with slap, and then it would sound more, you know, fusiony or progressive, and then you can still have that different approach. I don't know why it completely disappeared. It's kind of like mind-boggling. Like, you know, it's, for me, it's just a different texture of an instrument that can give so much, and then you kind of decide like completely to delete. Like, all right, I don't want to have this at all. I'm gonna just focus, narrow it down even less.
It's not
But
just bass.
that's my
I mean, it's all instruments. I feel like it used to be dance music that was played loudly in a tavern or a ballroom, and it was like, to play saxophone, you couldn't. You had to, like, you know, blast it, you know. And I feel like it's all the instruments. They've all, and singing and everything. It's not just bass. So I think slap bass went out of style at the same time that playing, you know, having to play like real loud horns and belt it, and, you know, I don't know. I mean, it definitely. I mean, BEAU definitely told me some stories about Milt. I mean, he told me he was watching Milt Hinton play one time, and Milt did a slap bass thing, and when he was done, he sat down, and Al McKibben was there, and he went up to Milt and he said, "You just set our race back 100 years." And it was like this weird, and BEAU was like, it's almost, it was like considered to be like minstrel music or something, you know. It was like, I guess maybe it was like it's like a novelty, you know, maybe seen as a novelty, and now we're like artists. But you're right, it could have been taken on into like playing slap. I mean, it has been. It's an artistry. There's no, it hasn't been taken to its limit. You know.
It's interesting, you know. Like, for me, it was always like why would you just erase something that it's cool and great, and then just, why don't you just add things and then make that like sounding more progressive? But, you know, whatever, you know, people are doing different things now. It's with Slapstream, we found out like how many amazing different approaches we have to this wonderful instrument. So
right.
Hopefully more people will realize that. I would like to talk a little bit about your gear. You mentioned that you have 2 basses, and they're both 51Ks. What kind of strings do you use?
So I have my preferred strings are gamut guts for my D and my G string, and then on my E and my A on both my basses, I have I inherited a giant box of Roto Sound strings from the 60s. And so they're metal strings, but they have like a really warm, they sound almost like Pirastro Eudoxas. And so they bow really well, and they sound very much like a gut with a wrapped metal. And so I got all these strings, and so I've been using those because I have like a lifetime supply of them. They sound really good, and I don't know if I can even afford Pirastros anymore.
So whoever wants to achieve, you know, BEAU sample sound should try to find like the 1960s strings.
Well, I mean, I will say I mean, they sound like Pirastro Eudoxas. I always used Pirastro Eudoxas until I got those.
So you were endorsed by Pirastro, right?
Yeah, they don't technically say they endorse people. I was always confused by that. They said, we don't endorse people, but if we can use your picture for a promo, we'll send you free stuff. And I'm like, isn't that an endorsement?
Okay.
And so, yeah, they were sending me free things for a while. Yeah, I haven't asked them for a while. They probably wouldn't do it if I asked them again. But I was touring a lot with Arana, and we were doing some like, whenever we'd have like a Bob Dylan tour or something, and I would like call them. I would say like, hey, I'm going out on this tour opening for Dylan. Can I get some free stuff? I'd try to do it at like opportune moments where I sounded like I was bigger than I was. But yeah, they used me on like an ad or some, on their website or something.
That's cool. I remember seeing that photo. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah.
How do you often have to change? I mean, considering that you play like a vintage strings, how do you often have to change them?
I only change them when they're about to break or they break. So
how often is that?
It kind of depends. I mean, I'll keep D's. The G is typically the only one that breaks, so I'll have it on for 2 years, 3 years, maybe.
Okay. So how long do you have your E and A on your bass?
I think that I've had these on for 10 years.
And how many sets you have?
That's the secret. I don't know. I think I have like 12 sets or something like that.
Okay, cool. So you're definitely set.
I'm set. I'll pass them on to one of my kids if they play bass.
Do they play bass? Anyone has an interest?
Unfortunately.
No? Or do they play music at all?
No, kind of.
Okay.
My oldest daughter plays trumpet in her band, in the band at school.
Oh, cool.
And my younger daughter plays piano. She's not really liking it, so I think she wants to start playing guitar. So she got a guitar. Rick Sherry from Devil in a Woodpile gave her this cool little guitar, and so I think when this pandemic thing is over, she's gonna start taking some guitar lessons.
Okay, yeah. That's cool. You mentioned, but I forgot it. Have you said that you use Gallien-Kruger amp?
Yeah.
Okay, which one?
I have a 400 and an 800, and I use the 400 mainly.
And what is the cabinet do you use?
I have a Bergantino that's like a 112.
I use 12. Okay.
And then I have a David Eaton 410.
Which one do you prefer?
I prefer. Oh, I have them all for different things. So I prefer. I typically. I go to the smaller one more because I don't play a lot of loud music. But it's really fun to break the big one out once every 6 months. Mm-hmm. I mean, the 410 to me that's big, Actually, I just got, because of Kevin, so I had a 410 for a long time when I was touring, and then I got rid of it, and then I just was on tour again, and Kevin, we were in Texas, and Kevin loaned me his bass and his gear for a week or something, and I had forgotten how much I loved that 410, and so I went home and I bought one right away, which is very unlike me. But I was like, I got to get this again. I got to get it. But unfortunately, that was like a year and a half ago, so I've only used it like 4 times.
So how would you say that 10s work better for the bass or 12s?
I think the 10s work better at a high volume.
Okay.
I think
for the lower volume.
For my setup, yes. Okay. But it always it depends on the bass and the pickup and everything, I think. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We have a question from Red Back Lounge again, like why your basses sound so great.
Hopefully it has something to do with me a little. I don't know. I mean,
yeah. He also asked, like, did you play massive wood bass? They're plywood, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're both plywood.
Do you have a special way how you create your own bass lines and grooves?
No, I mean, I think that voice leading is really important to me. Like, so where chord tone. A lot of times I'm thinking of them as chords. So this is where piano playing comes in handy, because if it's a C7 going to an F major, like a lot of times I'm thinking of it as a chord and where those chord tones are moving, like in voice leading, like you would if you were writing out, I don't know, a chorale or something in school. And so I think that that's really important to me, is like where, dominant 7 leading down or leading up, or where these things are going. That's always a really interesting thing to me in walking bass lines. And I think I rely heavily on on that, as opposed to just falling into the same old arpeggios. Makes it sound a little more melodic.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it's always the goal to kind of create a counterpoint that works almost separately as a independent melodic line, but it's also supporting the melody and chords.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Which is tricky in the music, in the roots music that we mostly play. It's sometimes
it's not appropriate.
Expected to play certain cliche patterns.
I think sometimes it can be not appropriate if you're playing. If you're playing a Carl Perkins song and you're playing like super hit, like voice leading, it's kind of like, okay, yeah. It goes into what we were saying earlier, which is like, is it appropriate or not?
It becomes not hip, and it becomes like nerdy and not cool.
Yeah, we're all real impressed here.
When you tour, do you usually tour with your bass, or you rely on a rental and backline?
I try to take if it's in the States, I prefer driving, and I prefer taking my bass if I can. I stopped flying with bass. I flew for years with my bass, and then I would do it for a few years, and I would get sick and tired of it, and then I would start borrowing or renting basses, and I kind of went back and forth, and now I just think I'm done like traveling with my bass. It's not worth it to me. I should be able to take what I get, and like try to at least make it work. For a long time, I feel like I had this idea, if I couldn't sound exactly like me, then I didn't want to do it. And I think I've gotten more lax about that.
Do you have to make any adjustments?
Yeah, I typically put guts on. I always put guts on the bass and raise the action quite a bit if I can.
And your pickup?
And I bring my pickup. And I always make a point to like say before I go somewhere, like, if we're going overseas, I'll say like, just be warned, I'm going to change the strings, or I need a bass where I can change the strings, because obviously I don't want to get some bass that some guy's loaning me and then he's upset because I'm changing everything.
But do you have a problem since those holes on the bridge are usually smaller for the steel strings, and especially the nut? Do you have to adjust that as well?
I won't.
You would.
I only had a problem a couple of times where it's popped out or something. I wouldn't dare like file anyone's.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
No, though I have done something where I've taken like a piece of cardboard or paper and like put it in the notch under the string to help it so it wouldn't fly off.
Okay.
Or it's not typically a problem with the G or the D, for me at least. So if it really is a problem, I'll leave the steel strings on for the E and the A, or just the E, and like just put my gut D and G's on,
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said you always use underwood.
Yeah, I've tried I've tried a lot of pickups, and I always go back to that.
And you use only one side or both?
One on the east side.
On the east side, okay. Don't you think that you sometimes have? I mean, I tried that style, and then sometimes I have the problem with the notes that are around the when I go all the way down on the neck, and then there's like a few notes that I think that I hear them a little less volume than actual lower notes. Do you do anything to adjust the volume?
Well, if I put an Underwood on one bass, I have an Underwood on another bass, so I put it on this one, they sound different, notes pop out. So it's not even. I think I've just gotten used to like compensating.
Mm-hmm. So you compensate with your playing, you don't use a compressor or something.
Right. I think that I've just gotten used to kind of doing that. Though I will say that, so the Underwood sounds really good on my bass. It sounds even on the bass that I play when I play electrically. And so I don't have to really worry about that, though it kind of depends. Sometimes you put it on a bass and it doesn't work. It doesn't sound very good. Mainly I keep it because I'm comfortable with it. I've gotten used to playing with it. I'm used to the sound, and I feel like that's what I just feel like that's part of my sound now. So I always end up going back to it.
And okay, yeah, it's important to keep your own sound. So it's Underwood, and you do not. Have you ever tried using any compressors or something?
I did. Yeah, for a while I was using an RNC. Kevin was using like an RNC compressor for a while, and he kind of convinced me to give it a shot. And so I got one and I was using it. And I think we both at the same time kind of realized it wasn't that beneficial.
Okay.
So I think we both stopped using it. I don't think he uses one anymore. I don't think. Maybe he does. But
do you use any other pedals or any other effects?
No, I just plug right in.
Oh, okay. I thought so, but I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
I think we covered pretty much everything that I wanted to ask you. Is there anything that you want to mention?
No, I mean, no, not really.
Okay.
I can't wait to get back out there and play. I mean, I can't wait to travel and see. I miss seeing fans and seeing people dance, and I'm very much looking forward to it. So, yeah, I hope to
I still have one more question for you, and that will be, and then after that, I would like to hear you play one more song, if you don't mind. But first, like, what would you say? What inspired you to still do what you do?
I think it has to do with the social aspect of playing music, like playing in a band with people and playing for people for like social events. I think is essential. There were times I think when I didn't really know if that was true. It's like, you go through these like, why am I doing this? How, is this important? And now I realize like it's essential, and so I think that's inspiring. It's inspiring to go out and see people, talk to them, and make them dance, hopefully, or laugh or smile. Or I was just telling someone the other day how amazing it is that so often we all, I think, probably play weddings for people. And the reason you're playing the wedding is because they met at a show that you were playing. And it's like, how amazing is that I was playing bass and these people met at this event that I was performing at, and now I'm playing their wedding. It's great. And so I think that's all very inspirational.
Thanks so much. We've been talking for almost 3 hours, so time flies when you talk slap bass.
With my voice.
Do you mind playing one more tune?
No.
All right, let's do that.
I should send this. I saw my dad commented again. I'll sing something for him, since he always wants to know why I don't sing more.
So this song is for Keith, right?
So I'm gonna show you right now why I don't sing more. So how about Lazy Day? This is like a Texas, you know, Bob Wills did this song. I really am kind of losing my voice now. I might have gone fishing. I got to thinking it over. But the road to the river, well, it's a mighty long way. Well, it must be the season. No rhyme or no reason. I'm just taking it easy. Well, it's my lazy day. Just you never mind calling, 'cause I ain't a-coming. Just get you on by me. I keep out of my way. Just a little hard thinking might drive me to drinking. Just taking it easy. It's my lazy day. There's a couple of verses of that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Bo. I can't wait to see you play live, and hopefully, you know, things are gonna go back to normal soon.
Thanks a lot.
Kind of the end, the light at the end of a tunnel, and hopefully, you know, they're gonna be more live music. I guess we have like two questions, real quick from Ravo. When can we listen his next release? Will it be a Ventrella one?
The latest thing I recorded was I did a Pokey Lafarge record. I've done it.
Played on that record. Okay.
Well, it's not out yet, I don't think. I mean, I've done things with them in the past that have been released.
Okay.
And we did one a while back. I mean, during the pandemic, and I don't know when it's going to be out, but that's one. And then I have some other things coming up that I'm recording. I'm doing a session with Jake Labatz that we're doing relatively soon. That'll probably be out. I don't know when that'll be out either. So I guess those are the two things to look for, but I don't really know what the release dates are.
Okay. And the one more is like, how far are your strings from the fingerboard?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't measured. You know, that's actually another thing that I don't mess with my string action very much. I just I kind of enjoy that it goes up and down with the weather. And so so right now it's kind of low. I mean, that's a good question. Well, I mean, let's see. I wish I had down here it's probably half an inch. Maybe half an inch, maybe maybe a little less. And it's kind of low now because of the dry air. So it'll go up when it starts getting humid. But I don't really mess with it much.
All right. So whatever you do, it sounds great. You know, if you're messing around or not, you know, I'm sure that if you change it, it would still sound amazing. Thanks again, and all the best to you. And then I can't wait to see you play live.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. All right, folks. That was the 35th episode of the Slapstream with Djordje live from Slapsville. Thanks so much. Thank you, Caroline. Happy Slapper Day. Cloudberry, good night. Good night to you. It's still the middle of the day here. Laurent, Elbakov, that's the way to go. Superb show. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. Candies sound great. And we all love Bo. And Hipster Boogie, thank you guys. Agamon, thanks. All right, thank you all. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, please make sure to do that. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. And if you'd like to support the show and make me continue doing this, consider supporting via PayPal and Venmo, and especially the Patreon. All the links are in the description of the video. And don't forget, never fret, slide it in smooth, and keep it in a groove. This is Djordje, your friendly neighborhood bull fiddle cat, and I'll see you next Saturday.